Hello, everyone. This is 8 more awesome yoga slash life tips. So, I'm a huge yoga nerd, and mainly the reason is because yoga helps remind us that we're in charge of how we move and how we perceive things. It also makes for a solid workout. So, tip number 1, rising through the front body and grounding through the back body. What this means is having your heart energy radiate forward, finding places to lift and places to ground. Tip number 2, hugging your low ribs up and in. This one is great for energy. So if you're low on energy, you can hug your low ribs up and in. And it's kind of like connecting muscle to bone. Tip number 3, softening the skin of the face. So a lot of the times whenever we're stressed out or something happens, whether it's conflict or just being annoyed at life, I guess, softening the skin of the face really helps because it kind of trains the parasympathetic nervous system to remind us that we're not in a state of fight or flight. Also, it helps reinforce that notion of doing things and reacting to things gracefully and with ease. Tip number 4, shoulders down and back. And I mentioned this tip in the top 5 things that I learned from yoga, but it's worth bringing up again, mostly because I mixed up the order. In that video I said back and down. Instead it's shoulders down and back. Tip number 5, this is a big one. You will identify with your center differently every day. It's kind of like a catch-22. And yoga really helps to bring us back to that state of authenticity, our true selves. It's kind of like that moment in Zoolander where you look in the pond and you're like, who am I? Tip number 6, where attention goes, energy flows. So I have been very occupied currently with applying to master's schools and trying to get in, writing statement of intent letters, and I noticed that the more that I think about whether I'll get in this year or the next, the time in between, just overthinking about that doesn't necessarily help. I'm also trying to write an article specifically for the Journal of Theoretical Psychology and Philosophy about Schopenhauer. And even though I've gotten good feedback, there's still a lot of work that I need to do, and I find that I overthink a lot of, what if it won't get published? What if I'll write it and then the editors will say it's not worth it? And honestly, tip number 6, where attention goes, energy flows, it's really about that idea of focusing on the things that you can control. If I'm constantly thinking of, it won't succeed, or things won't work out, or so on and so forth, where attention goes, energy flows. And even though it's hard and we're all human, it's just an important point to remember. Tip number 7, kind of in relation to tip number 6, a flash of surrender. And yoga helps practice that a lot, especially before going to bed. It really it's really important to just let go of the day thus far, and yeah, it's hard to describe, but a flash of surrender. And tip number 8, which is 3 mantras that summarizes all of the tips together. I picked up all of these mantras and all of this from Yoga with Adriene, and the first mantra relates to point 1 that I mentioned in the video, which is the breath always comes first. First tip is the breath is my anchor, or the mantra rather. The breath is my anchor, the anchor is my breath. The second mantra, which helps with tip number 7, is everything is as it should be. And the third one, which is my favorite one by far, the universe is for me, and so is everything else. So, I don't know if I should do a speed run, but tip number 1, rising through the front body, grounding through the back body. Tip number 2, hugging your low ribs up and in. Number 3, softening the skin of the face. 4, shoulders down and back. 5, you will identify with your center differently every day. 6, where attention goes, energy flows. 7, a flash of surrender. And 8, those 3 mantras. The breath is my anchor. The anchor is my breath. Everything is as it should be. And the universe is for me, and so is everything else. So, these were 8 awesome yoga / life tips. I hope you all enjoyed.